So welcome everyone to this episode of Right Riches Talks. We have the most amazing Lale Hancock with us. Say hi, Lale.
Hi, guys.
And then the equally and beautiful and amazing Tutissa. So this issue of Right Riches Talks, we want to talk about needlessness and how needlessness is actually one of the keys to growing both your business and your life, and gives you the most amazing amount of freedom that you could possibly imagine. So needlessness, what comes up for you, my love, when we talk about needlessness?
I have been playing with this idea of needlessness for such a long time. That's the energy space and the consciousness that if we all can be functioning from the space of needlessness, the world would be a better place, meaning we don't need the validation from anyone. We don't need anyone to fulfill our requirement, our life. We're able to create and generate from a space of possibilities. But when we function from neediness, it creates a lot of judgment, a lot of projections, a lot of limitations in our life, because we're looking outside of ourselves all the time to fulfill, our desire, our need, our sense of lack. So if you're coming from needlessness, you have no lack in your life and in your universe, and everything you do will be from a space of contribution.
Yeah, as you're talking about that, it's almost like if you have that feeling or that sense of needy, I need this, I need clients, I need people, I need my family, I need my partner, I need to be liked, I need to be in the background, all of those, it's almost like it destroys choice.
Mm-hmm. There's no choice when you need, really.
Mm. And that sense of needlessness, I know certainly in the work that I do with the boards and the CEOs and the work that we do together as well, one of the great things to tap into before you go and see anyone is this sense of needlessness. And you walk into the room and you own it. You absolutely own it because you need nothing. And people pick up on that. And it's not you're not putting it on, you're not pretending. You actually don't need judgments. You don't need no judgments. You don't need them to get anything. You don't need them to not get anything. In fact, you don't need anything. So that enables you, and what I find is just enables me to have a huge amount of fun doing whatever that's required. And I don't even have to worry about what's required because I have no need for it. It's very cool.
It's such a different concept, though. I mean, we grew up our whole lives with learning how to need things, and that if you didn't need something, what's wrong with you? I look at it even in terms of conversations, like strategic conversations that are happening at the board level, they're happening at the senior leadership level. A lot of it goes to need. It's all about need, instead of really looking at possibilities and looking at choice and looking at, what if it's not that we actually need to raise $2 million, right? But what is it that our organization would actually like to create out in the world?
Different conversation. Yeah.
It's such a different conversation. It's such a different conversation. And I know that this concept of needlessness, even the first time I heard it, it was like, wait, that's almost like make my brain spin a little differently, because it's such a different concept than most of us have ever been exposed to. But I'm so grateful, learned it with Gary Douglas, bringing it up in one of the classes. And I was like, wow, there can be a world where you don't have to do something because you need to do it. It's purely based on what's going to create greater for you, your business, the world, and you get to choose it. And by you choosing it, you actually get to choose when it no longer works for you either. And
I can hear all these voices from everyone who's watching this going, rubbish, absolute rubbish. You have to do things sometimes. You have to. There's this need thing. And the only thing I'd say to those of you who are saying that is that, well, what if you didn't need to? What if you could actually make your choices from the space of choice rather than having to, or not having to, or can't? And the thing here is that every time that anyone thinks that anything that is being said in these Right Riches talks is rubbish, then just consider, well, what if it was so? What would that look like for me? And it doesn't mean you have to believe or not believe or take what we say, but just play with it, because once you play with the energies of these, you'll start to see people around you changing.
The energy of being needless begin from the inside of you. So if you could be in the question and tap into the energy of what would it be like if you have that energy of needlessness, that you don't need anyone to fulfill anything for you. You know how often most of us going through our life looking for validation and acknowledgement from people. It seems almost every single thing we be and do in this contextual reality, we keep seeking, okay, am I doing it right? Does he like what I did? It's almost like constantly seeking the validation from people to acknowledge that you said the right thing, you perform whatever you did correctly, instead of look at it and say, okay, I've done this the best I could possibly done with the information and the capacity I have in these 10 seconds. And what else can I create and generate more when I acquire more information and things? But I'm not going to judge myself, and I'm going to be willing to acknowledge that I have done that fully in my best capacity. From that space, you're not going to go around looking for validation and acknowledgement. But how many of us able to, in this 10 seconds, choose to truly being that? Steve is actually, I learned so much from him, because he would go out to all of these projects with client or presentation at being a keynote speaker. And Steve is very, very good at that. He's able to receive those judgments without really sit back and say, what's wrong with me? Do you? You never actually
I've never thought what's wrong with me ever.
And say, why didn't they receive me? What's wrong with me that they keep throwing, rotten tomato or anything?
Tell me more about these rotten tomatoes.
No, but from that space,
I want to know more too.
No, rotten tomato is a judgment.
Rotten tomatoes literally are the judgments that people will have, and they will throw it at you just by being there with their arms crossed, or texting, or open their laptop when you're facilitating a meeting. They're all the rotten tomatoes, and it's hilarious.
And the body language, how often do you go into presentation or keynote, and when people sit with cross their arm and they go and those are worse than rotten tomato, right? At least it's just so everything that we are not willing to receive the judgment that would create the need of validation and acknowledgement from people. That is space that we have to start being willing to receive all of that before we can be in the space of needlessness.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, when you describe it that way, it really is. Most people do not desire to receive any form of judgment, but judgments are just one thing I love about what Steve says, everything, it's just your point of view about it. So, you can let the judgment stop you, halt you, not allow you to expand, grow, get promoted, or all these other things. Or you can just be like, okay, that's great. Now what else?
Don't judge the judgments.
Yes. They're just words. They're just somebody's perspective. They don't have to, affect you. Don't make them wrong or right. And if anything, I think most people, though, what they see is, there's certain things they're willing to receive judgments about, and then there's certain other things that they've already put up their wall that, nope, no, I can't do that. And this needlessness, it's really an interesting concept. Like Steve said, whether you agree with what we're saying or not, just ask some questions. Like, what would needlessness even look like in my life? I wonder.
when people are functioning from needy is they're actually being the victim of.
Mm-hmm.
But the other interesting thing is that when someone is being needy, they are also creating victims.
Yeah.
And so whenever you have that sense of neediness in yourself, then what am I being the victim of? And who am I trying to victimize?
Yeah.
Because that sense of needlessness means that there is no victim. I'm not creating victims. Everyone who has a sense of neediness, and I'm thinking of some people in our life that function from neediness constantly, and they see themselves as the victim. And because they see themselves as a victim, their goal in life is to turn everyone else into a victim so that they can align and agree with victimhood.
So if you look at being needy equal to being a victim, and the victim job is to victimize everyone. Just receive this. If you see yourself as needy, you are turning yourself into the victim. Are you aware that when you see yourself as a victim, you start to victimize everyone in your environment, in your career, in your job, in your family? So be aware of that. I know some of you are going to say rubbish again, but please just tap into the energy and know that that's what you are creating. Hey, if you enjoy doing it and it works for you, we're not telling you to not do it, because it's your choice to create your life exactly the way you want to create it. If you're happy being needy and victim and victimized people, that is the choice you create. But what if there are different possibilities? Tap into the energy that, okay, if I let go of being a victim, if I let go of being needy, and if I don't have to victimize anyone at all in my life, how much more can I create and generate in my life beyond the space that I am being and doing right now? What else is possible? That's all we're inviting you and inspire you to ask that question. We're not telling you that you must change. We're just inviting you to see, try this different possibility for just these 5 minutes
and look,
and play with it.
Sometimes rotten things happen in your life. They're rotten things, okay? So, but you've got a choice then. Do I choose to be a victim of it, or do I choose something different? But sometimes rotten things happen, right? It's how you choose to be with that will either create the needlessness or the victimhood. So sometimes the universe throws some really interesting things at us. It's how you choose to be with that that's important, not the fact that it was thrown at you.
But isn't, when you're talking about rotten thing, isn't that just a judgment and the point of view anyway? Something rotten that you judge that rotten and terrible is just your own point of view and judgment. It could be amazing and wonderful for other people. For example, if you are a farmer who require rotten tomato and rotten vegetable to use as a fertilization for your farm, and if you go up there and you get lots and lots throwing at you, how much more can you use that to your advantage? How could you gather up all rotten tomato and use to grow your farm and create greater possibilities? You know, just that point of view alone.
I love this point of view. That is, I'm going to have to steal that, Chetissa. That's going to have to be one I use in the future. Oh my God, that's perfect.
So this whole conversation around needlessness is just, it's incredibly powerful.
But the needlessness is not just about business either. It's about your life as a mother, your life as a wife, as friend. If you have best friend that's so needy of your time, if your best friend constantly need you to call her, need you to validate her or him, need all these, sooner or later, you're just going to be so exhausted and feel being victimized by that person. How much longer can you be best friend with that person? Or if your partner, your husband, your wife, constantly needing the acknowledgement and validation, how much or how expansive would that relationship be?
Welcome to family relationships.
Yeah. And, you know, the whole time you were talking earlier, Chatissa, I was actually thinking of how much kids disengage from their parents because their parents are being so needy,
Mhm.
right? So, I mean, how many of us possibly have family members like that, like the way you described it? And it's like there's moments you're like, okay, I could call them. Or maybe, no, I want to do 25 other things first because I know that they require a different level of energy. You know, so it really is. I wonder, like, if parents, if leaders, if whoever that person is, really listens to the languaging that they're using and says, okay, I have a choice right now. I could be needless, I could be needy. Which one do I choose and which one's going to create greater for me?
Mm.
You know, and then allow themselves to try it. Try it. Be needy. Be as needy as you can be and see how that works for you. And then be needless and see how that might end up changing and creating so many more possibilities. And I see it in a work environment all the time on projects, the ones who actually require that continuous validation and where that takes the project. And then I see where people empower each other, they're grateful for each other, they're willing to explore ideas they've never considered before, but they're willing to do it from that space of needlessness. And really, what that ends up being and doing and creating on the project is so different. So I really wonder, you know, just a curiosity of playing with this tool of being needless, what that can create in people's lives.
Yeah, and you just mentioned the word there that I think is also essential to as part, if you are being a leader of any project, is being grateful and gratitude. That is a tool that people don't use enough in the business world of grateful and gratitude. That could be a conversation we have in maybe in the next Rich's talk.
I feel another episode coming up.
What would it be like if the leader functioned from the space of gratitude in any project? But the same thing is about being a leader and being from the space of needlessness. So how many leaders don't actually choose to be that space of needlessness? If we could be a leader and we are needless, then we don't need to control anyone. Then we don't need to micromanage anyone. Then we create a space and energy for our people, our staff, to be everything that they can be. However, if we choose to be a leader that functions from neediness and the need everything, can you imagine how much filter you will get through the information coming up from your staff? People know when you need it. People know how you function. People can catch the space that you operate in, and they will use that against you. If you're a leader who's needed,
it's the
staff will use that against you.
It's the dark side of politics, office politics, people politics, country politics. This sense of neediness is just, well, to me, it's a destroying energy. So we hope you've enjoyed this conversation around needlessness and some ideas that you might want to consider because, I mean, I'm sorry, but it actually does work. Look forward to seeing you all on the next episode of Right Rich's Talks. Bye, everyone.